And welcome back, rugby fans, to, of course, the Run, Pass, or Kick interviews with your team here from the Rugby Rant podcast show. A quick reminder, my name is Ty Braga, your host for today's activities, alongside the familiar face of Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt and Scott Ferrara, who's producing the show in the background. But more importantly, let's go ahead and welcome the man of the hour, Christian Dyer, to the show. Christian, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, guys. Look forward to it.
It's us who look forward to it. More importantly, it's because of the Run, Pass, or Kick lineup of questions that have been put together by, of course, Rob Hammerschmidt. And to be able to run you through how it works, one more time, here's Rob.
All right, for those who are uninitiated in Run, Pass, or Kick interview style, it works a little like this. We're basically going to pose questions to Christian, have a little fun with him, give you guys an opportunity to get to know him, not only as a rugby personality, but as a person. And with each of the questions, we will prompt him by saying Run, Pass, or Kick, and Christian will tell us what he's going to do. If he decides to run with a question, it means he's going to go ahead and take it right up the middle and run with it, answer the question straight up. If he decides to pass a question, it simply means it's a little too hot to handle. He's going to dish that one off and put the pressure, take the pressure off himself, that is. And finally, if he decides to kick, he can put us on the defensive. Had a little fun with Ty and the Hammer, and he can have us answer the question as if we were answering for him. And he can grade us out, tell us we were horrible, tell us we were good. But the key is here is if he doesn't direct it towards either one of us, either identifying Ty or myself, whoever asked the question will be the other way, Ty, will be the one who will go ahead and answer it instead. So again, it's his chance to have a little fun with us, put us on the back foot, put us on the defensive in this style of question. So Christian, are you ready for the Run, Pass, or Kick interview style?
I'm ready to go.
Awesome, man. Well, it's almost now cliche. The boys are always talking about the fact how I stalk all our guests on the internet a little bit, get a deep dive into their lifestyle, and I didn't want to disappoint, my friend. So that's where the next question stems from. Many people don't know this, but you enjoy your water sports. You're from San Diego, but interestingly, you like wakeboarding. Run, Pass, or Kick, has Gary Gold put the kibosh on your wakeboarding career?
All wrong with it. That topic has yet to be discussed. I'm sure you would have some words to say about that, but nah, that's never been brought up.
Well, hopefully he's not watching now. I know he's been on the show before, but I mean, you're getting some aerials in, man. You're getting turned upside down and everything. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, just from a youth age, I kind of had a little daredevil side to me, and I grew up racing motocross and doing some action sports, and just.
It's funny you were saying that, because I was just about to add, it's like one of those sports like motocross. It's not a question of if, but when I get hurt, usually.
Yeah. Well, I lived on a ranch for about 6 years, and we had a lot of land and had a couple tracks out there. And
what else do you do with that land, right?
Exactly. I'm a young kid with a lot of energy, so I had to do something. And then
I feel like there's an insurance contract that's going to have many riders in the future. I see it coming your way.
I'll have to postpone all these types of sports till after the rugby career is over. But yeah, just fell in love with boating and wakeboarding, and started to get pretty good at it. Attended a few camps and learned a few tricks and had some fun with it. But once rugby picked up and got a bit more competitive, I had to put that in the back burner for a bit.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can find ways to revisit it, but I don't know if there's a less impact version of it.
Yeah, and when I'm done with rugby, who knows if my body is even going to want to, dare to do some of the stuff I used to be able to do.
Yeah, but nonetheless, man, there ain't much that beats a good boat ride in the evening, cruising down the water at 35 or 40 mile an hour, wind in the hair, and just letting it all hang out, for sure. Man, I love getting on the boat.
Yep.
Right. It's all about being outside. I get it. Yeah. And the enjoyment there. So let's turn our attention to a little bit more about you, your background. And through the course of this interview, we're going to get to know who Christian Dyer is and how your involvement in rugby will blossom as the years go by, because you, my friend, are still very much so at the beginning of your journey when it comes to professional rugby. But you started your career as a high school level, Jesuit school, Sacramento, of course. We spoke about that off camera being such a big influence in those early years. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that influence. And as I line up question number 2, I remind you, it's run, pass, or kick are your options. So here lies the next question. You are the 58th Cal Bear to have an Eagle cap. You might not have realized that. Rob does his research. So with that in mind, between both the head coach, Jack Clark, and assistant coach, Tom Billups, there is a definite Eagle pedigree there. How instrumental have they been in the trajectory of your pathway to representative honors?
Yeah, I can run with this one.
Of course.
I owe a lot of credit to Coach Clark and Coach Billups. They're massive figures in the trajectory of my rugby career, and both in very, very unique ways. Because they do have a different approach to the game, a different coaching style, and I guess a different influence on Cal rugby in itself. Coach Clark definitely creates this ethos around the university and the team about just high performance and consistent habits and just being accountable and putting the team before yourself, and knowing that you're a part of something bigger than just the individual player. And so I guess having that on, taking that on board and really learning from him created the foundation and the pillars of my trajectory, the little habits of how I was going to get better and get to the next step. And he was a massive influence, both on and off the field. And Coach Billups with the strength and conditioning program and taking charge of the backs. He and I became really, really close with each other. And I owe a ton of credit to him. And he helped me get back from the ACL injury I had. And so I don't know, sitting here today, if I would be here without Cal Rugby, in all honesty. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Follow up. Was your ACL injury from wakeboarding?
That was a rugby related injury.
Just had to check.
And if it was, he's not telling anybody that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stick with the rugby story.
I would have been playing rugby at the park with some friends.
Oh, jeez.
Man, it's always like the worst injuries often come from the most casual moments. They're
No,
at the highest levels of the game. It's like I tripped and fell over like a kid's toys,
The ACL was in camp a few days before heading to Pan American Games down here at the center. But I was saying, had it been a wakeboarding injury, I probably would have said, I was just playing rugby at the park.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Fair enough.
And I want to kind of visit that time period, because I think it's pretty interesting of where you've come from and how you've gotten to this point in your career coming from Cal. Because right in that mix was not only your recovery from the ACL surgery, but there was also a COVID element there. COVID in the spring, Cal couldn't compete for a 15s national title in 2020. Run, pass, or kick, how did that impact your efforts to transition from competitive rugby post-college?
It closed some doors and it opened some doors for me. I think the unknown was a bit scary, not knowing if I was going to have a season to get back into, if I was going to do a 5th year. Was rugby going to be happening, at the university level the following year? There was just so much unknown. And so that was about March. I had a few months left in my recovery back to playing. And Coach Friday and I kept in contact ever since the year before with the Pan American Games. And he basically said, hey, if you can expedite your graduation, which required about 20 units to be completed over the summer, he's like, we'll bring you in. Yeah, it was brutal. He said, we'll bring you in full time in August. So it was a pretty tough decision. I was in the crossroads, and I still had some goals that were left unfinished at Berkeley, which are going to haunt me forever. But that's life, and sometimes you'll never be able to tick off every box that you set out for. But that opened the sevens route, and the opportunity to go join something full time at the next level is a bit daunting. Taking that leap, coming back from an ACL injury, but I'm really, really grateful I made that decision, and I had the mentors around me to help guide me and put things into perspective for me. So COVID was an unfortunate circumstance, but you do got to just look at the light in every situation, and that's what I did. And I just took it on 100 miles an hour.
You must have lived like a monastic lifestyle that summer. I mean, the discipline that was required to take, 20 hours of classes so you could meet your goal and make that commitment to Coach Friday and the team. But then to mix in, the last little bit of your recovery from ACL surgery and getting your body ready back to be in rugby shape, that must have been an incredible endeavor you engaged in for that summer.
Summer was pretty tough. I was working with my trainer at 6:30 every day. Then I'd come home for class it was 9 to 12 and then 4 to 6. And then I would get my field sessions in really late in the evenings. And that lasted about, I think, 12 weeks. So the social life was put on hold for a bit. But I was fortunate that COVID, made it available. Classes transitioned to an online platform, so I could do everything from home and whatnot. It's the world was almost on pause for a bit, so I hunkered down. I knew that there was a bigger goal that lied right beyond this just short moment in my life. So I just took it on board and put the head down and went to work.
Well, kudos to you.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, seeing the silver lining that you had the time available. I mean, when would all the things align like that one more time? And, if you ask yourself that question, it almost never happens, right? So let's take the opportunity to dive into the next question. Again, run, pass, or kick. And this is an interesting one. I like this because we always want to try and engage our audience. And our fans online and, of course, in the social media groups are continuously active, talking about everything to do with rugby in North America, which is, of course, what the Rugby Rant does on a regular basis. So off that platform, this is what we have discovered, and we're going to propose the question to you as it has been shared online by fans. Run, pass, or kick. There has been a debate that is raging on social media in regards to college rugby in the U.S. Here lies the question. Would college rugby be better off under the auspices of the NCAA, in your opinion, and why? Run, pass, or kick?
I'll run, but that's a tough one, really, because as soon as NCAA is involved, it turns into a business. I don't know if it's necessarily for the development of the players, and is it a pathway to the national team? If it is under an NCAA jurisdiction, that may open up more doors for people who may not have the best grades to get into the best universities. There may be financial scholarships being given, so that opens up so many doors. But if we really want to start developing the national team, it starts beyond or before college. And if you look everywhere else in the world, college sports isn't the stepping stone to, the professional level or the national level. That's what academies are for, and that's what the leagues are for. So in all honesty, I think if colleges can work with academies or with MLR teams or with men's programs where kids are given the opportunity to get a degree, because education will last a lifetime and rugby won't. So we can't forget that, or not incentivize kids to get a degree and an education to set themselves up for after rugby. But if we can work in education with sport at the same time, I think that's going to funnel a lot more potential athletes to the league, to the national pathway, and that's where real development can start. But like I said, it starts before the university level. It's the youth programs and it's the high school programs where we can start putting a rugby ball in kids' hands.
And that's the most powerful way to be able to grow a rugby community from the roots up. But I'm going to press you for an answer. And while you've highlighted some of the great merits, there are some demerits to being included as an NCAA sport. But if you were forced to choose between the two, which might you lean closer towards?
I'm going to say no.
Yep. Fair enough. And it's great to be able to see it from your point of view, somebody who's, just gone through a very similar college pathway. You were introduced to rugby at a high school level, though. But of course, that college really solidifies you as a player. It's the maturing of a rugby player. So it's important breeding ground for that next generation. I know Rob has also brought up the importance of this at many occasions. So I appreciate your answer. And it'll probably be a continuing debate online, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would just want to touch upon the thing that I struggle with is right now the Wild West that is college rugby, right? I mean, with even probably since you graduated, obviously D1A has always been an ever-present part of the rugby landscape, college rugby landscape, that is, and then you have NCR now, which has emerged as a new element, not as a new element that was there, but it kind of has developed and morphed into something new. And then they have these unattached organizations, and then there's a couple other of these governing bodies. And it just like, for me, I got to wonder, shouldn't one organization kind of step to the forefront that's willing to put all the politics and all the self-interest aside to do what's best for the development of rugby and development of individual players in the United States so the game can take another step?
No, I mean, I hear you. Just as well as I do that the NCAA is a business, and players' rights, player welfare, and whatnot is definitely overlooked and looked over at some universities, and especially with athletes being able to monetize their name and their rights and whatnot. Rugby's not in a position here in the States that is going to be feasible. And that's why I think take an alternative route where we're funneling kids to academies and whatever teams outside of the school, or investing more money into the university level without the NCAA involved, allowing club programs, the ones that aren't varsity with the support of the university to compete at a high level and to have the proper facilities and access to medical staff and trainers and competition around the country.
So it's kind of funny, Christian, because as I developed these questions, I really saw this conversation manifesting itself, and you either bit the hook or I paid you behind the scenes to go in this direction. But herein lies the question, and I'm going to make you choose here. And I'm interested, if I were to hem you into a position, make you choose. Of course, you could always pass or kick, but nevertheless,
like the way it goes flat in that. You could always run it, or you could just pass and kick.
But so run, pass, or kick. Would the American rugby landscape be better off with academies instead of college rugby programs, and by de facto the MLR draft as a pathway to professional rugby in the United States?
Ooh, I haven't put much thought into something like that. But there are so many college teams, college clubs in the U.S., which calls for so many coaches and whatnot, where that may not be the highest level or, the most experienced coach to be in that position, or you've got teams. There's just so many. I think centralizing it into fewer options will pull together a more competitive environment, a more competitive team. So I do support the academy route, but that has to be a full-time option for kids. It's not just coming in for your summer months or whatever.
Yeah, they definitely need more resources for which to be able to draw players in. Especially, I think there's a big dearth of opportunity for kids from difficult backgrounds that may not have the financial challenges. I mean, you yourself have probably been pretty fortunate to be able to do some training at the national team and representative age grade honors.
Yep.
And been able to make it work. I myself have a son that's been going through a little bit of that, and I know that it can be quite costly and expensive, but we've given him the opportunity to do that. Probably not quite as lucky with some of the more disadvantaged kids from areas where there's hardship, and that's, I think, perhaps the challenge is we don't want to miss the boat on some of those fantastic athletes.
You definitely don't, but you have so many clubs, like I said, in the U.S. where they could play 20 games or whatever in a spring, and not one pathway coach would be watching. So that's the issue you're also faced with, is just exposure,
Right.
especially at the schools that aren't as recognized as others. And if you try to compare the U.S. to any other country, the academies is really the route to the next step. A lot of kids bypass college, or they do it online, so they're in a full-time academy environment.
We can only hope that that will be a part of the rugby culture here in the years to come. And there is still an ongoing debate about, the merits of the academy system, whether it would be successfully adopted here on the basis that it challenges college, and would they be competing for the same players? But as you said, there's different pathways for rugby. There's different situations. So, just more avenues to be able to pursue as a rugby player, as a fan, as a rugby player in the community, the better it is. So let's turn our attention to some other points here. And we're going to be diving shortly after this question into our quick tap section, which is a little bit of fun. We're going to see a little bit more of your personality as Rob lines that up coming up soon, but not before we hear from one of our sponsors. So that'll be coming up in just a moment. So I have the next question lined up. Number 6, run, pass, or kick. You were picked up in the supplemental draft by Rooney. Since then, your inclusion with the Eagles, your stock has skyrocketed. Obviously, some great energy, momentum within your career. And with that in mind, will we see you in an MLR shirt this coming spring?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know yet. The reason I entered the MLR draft was to be in the position I am now, is to be eligible to play. New York picked me up in the supplementary draft, and they relinquished my rights, I think, 3 months after getting them. So they knew that I wasn't going to be able to play in the immediate future. But it's really exciting to see where the MLR is going, the players that are coming over, the coaches in each organization, and the level of competition and talent is rising season to season. And it's really cool to see players that are internationally recognized want to come over to the States and be in the league and be pioneers to help grow it. So it's fantastic. You very well may see me in an MLR jersey.
We only hope to see that this coming season. I'm sorry, Rob, you wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny you say that. I mean, just, a week ago, Carlos Spencer was announced he's going to be joining NOLA's staff as assistant coach. He'll be working with the backs. And we know that the MLR is infamous for having some internationals come to our shores. I mean, obviously, the Rob Shaws, they just announced Nonu again will be coming to San Diego. But you never know who's going to spring into an MLR.
South Africa going to Houston.
Yeah, right. But you never know who's the next international is going to be landing in America's shores. It makes the league super exciting, right, especially for those of us geek guys that are really – that really follow it, yeah. So it's pretty cool to see. You're almost like Karnak, like that old Johnny Carson. Yeah. Your kind of perception is amazing, Christian. So.
And news that Ma Nanu's coming back at the age of 39. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting one too. I didn't actually have that on the radar because we moved on from that as a topic probably last year, beginning of this year, and then that came back. I'm sorry, I took us off on a different tangent, but it was just a thought that popped into my head.
Yeah, no, he gives us hope to all us old guys. I mean, not obviously MLR dreams in my future, but can I return to play a club team? I don't know, maybe. But hey, let's hear from one of our sponsors that has been super supportive of the Rugby Rant and is super supportive of local rugby here in Chicago. And that's Tight Head Brewing Company, Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers for all seasons. Located in Mundelein, Illinois, in the heart of Lake County, owner Bruce Dyer and the Tight Head staff will ensure you are kept well hydrated so you don't miss a single scrum. Tight Head's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tight Head Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tight Head, it's worth more than a try. So thank you, Christian, for indulging us while we, give an homage, if you will, to one of our sponsors. But they do make fabulous ales, and they rotate their stock quite a bit. They have their standards, but they also have.
Hey, I told you I found their beer in my local store here in Iowa by chance.
Right.
The Long Snapper was the one I tried. Pretty damn good beer. Obviously, it's not the first one I've had. Say again, Christian.
I said I'll have to get my hands on a few of them.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I like how he says a few of them, not just one.
Yeah, they make a phenomenal product. And they do the thing of it is that they do all kinds of beers from across the spectrum, from lights to darks, barrel-aged brewed stuff, IPAs. It's, Pilsners. It's pretty outstanding. Bruce does a really nice job there. So if you're in Chicago, check it out, folks. All right, we're going to get to the quick tap here. We'd send you some, Christian, but it would be illegal. So anyway, we're going to get to the quick tap here. So again, just this or that. You give a choice. You don't have to explain why. You can if you want to. It's completely and totally up to you. So better rugby highlights, big hits or big plays?
Big plays.
Nice. Well, a winger would say that, right? All right, best ride, sports car or big truck?
Ooh. Sports car.
Sports car. All right, ride of your choice.
Ooh, that's tough. Probably Lamborghini Urus.
Oh yeah, yeah. You young guys always know the Euro cars, man. My boys.
What do you mean? Like everybody knows Lamborghini.
Excuse me.
I said everybody knows Lamborghini, right?
What was that, Christian? You were saying?
I was thinking, what truck versus what sports car? Because we've always had trucks growing up, and but if it's gonna be for a joyride, we're gonna be in something a little more sleek, a little faster.
Yeah, cruising down the pack highway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, better night out with the boys or dinner with someone special?
Out with the boys.
All right.
I'm guessing there's no one special right now.
Dude didn't even flinch, man. Did you notice that?
Yeah, just straight up.
Boys.
Out with the boys.
Sounds like he's still in college. All right. All right. Better step, Troy Lockyer or Christian Dyer?
My teammate. I'm going to ask you, Rob.
I was going to kick that at you.
I'll take it. Christian Dyer. Dude scored a try in his debut. I mean,
right.
And
if competition.
Yeah. And just following the ball and made things happen. I loved it. It was great.
Hey, Troy and I are actually, we're best friends. He was going through an ACL recovery, and he would bring me up on the field to do one-on-ones at the latter part of his recovery. And first time we did the drill, I stepped Troy. He fell on his ass. The next week later, Troy steps me, and I fell. So it is 1-to-1 right now.
Here you go.
Well, there has to be a decider at some point, right? Then you can't leave it as a tie.
That's awesome. That's a great story. All right, last one here. Best team to watch: New Zealand or South Africa?
New Zealand.
See, I've been telling you the whole time, Ty. New Zealand.
That's okay. You can watch South Africa win a Rugby World Cup. You can watch them beat the Lions. You can watch them do anything. May not be pretty, but a win is a win.
Hey, a win's a win, but he's asking what's more enjoyable to watch. And
that's what I agree. I actually wrote the question, so I kind of set myself up for failure on that one, because obviously I'm biased from South Africa. But, my little rant would be to watch. I'd agree. New Zealand rugby is probably more exciting. But, the debate of which is the best winning rugby is still going to be had at some point.
Yeah, that's a tough conversation.
It is.
Who's your favorite Kiwi to watch? Like from any period, any time in history?
It's honestly changed. Growing up, when I used to play center, I was a real fan of Malachi Fekitoa.
Yeah.
I think just his power and pace, but his defense was brilliant.
Dude, that's going way back machine, by the way.
I know. But
that's
right
awesome.
now, I'm really intrigued and inspired by Will Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looked really good last weekend against Wales, particularly. So
that amazing chip and chase. And he's just, I think it's like 16 tries and
11 tests or something like that.
Whatever. I don't know what the statistics are, but they're They're freakish.
They're insane.
Yeah, they are.
You ever go back and watch replays of Christian Cullen?
No.
Now there's
now that's a guy you got to watch. Oh my God.
Yeah, a great step, great, and it just had an ability to be at the right place at the right time. Wonderful. I mean, like you could pick a long list of greats to be able to recognize as important players for New Zealand. You know, Carlos Spencer, we mentioned that name earlier, right? Another really inspiring player. Austin Flair was one of the ones that I always enjoyed. Always exciting because it was unpredictable every time he had the ball.
Yep.
All right, so Ty, I think you have the next question here.
That's right. So once again, I want to be able to remind everybody that if you like what we do here, you can tune in each and every week to watch another great episode here on the Rugby Rant with myself, Rob, and of course, Scott in the background, who will be able to have another person in the hot seat, a new Rugby Insider each and every week. So make sure that you follow us online under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod for more great content. In addition to the Run, Pass, or Kicks, you can, of course, follow our rugby debate shows that are cast on the Rugby Network each and every Friday. So once again, under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. So turning our attention back to Mr. Christian Dyer, at number 7, we have Run, Pass, or Kick. You scored the first international try for the Eagles on your debut against England this past July window. Can you remember anything about the moments leading up to that try?
Yeah, I'll run with it. Just the week before was a roller coaster. You know, I was playing in the Quest for Gold Sevens and got a call late that night saying, "Hey, you're coming to England tomorrow." And I said, "All right, let's do it." Arrived in camp knowing I wasn't going to play that weekend because I hadn't played sevens or 15s in 2 years. Saturday morning rolls around. I'm doing some conditioning because I wasn't playing, and the trainer runs out and said, Christian, stop running. You're playing tomorrow. I said, wow, okay. Let's do it. So I got my feet up.
Yeah, take a deep breath and let's get this done.
Yeah. And there really wasn't much time to think.
Sometimes it's better that way.
Yeah, no, I think it honestly was better that way. And I walked down Twickenham, a stadium that I've always dreamt of playing in. It was only 10,000 people, but I'll tell you what, it was pretty dang loud.
Right.
Yeah, there it is.
Right. Well, walk us through what's happening here.
So I'm thinking Mika is going to run somebody over.
Right.
I didn't see much space back on the inside for me unless somehow Michael Baspet got that ball, which fortunately, it tipped off the England player. And support play is probably one of the better parts of my game, and so I knew I just had to track that inside hip of his. And yeah, I remember scoring and right in front of Marcus Smith, who I really, really look up to right now. And yeah,
right, there's another young, great talent, 21, I think he is. But yeah, I mean, to be on the field, Twickenham must have been an awe-inspiring experience. And even though you say it was what is regularly considered to be a smaller audience, the feeling and the energy of that stadium must have been fuel for you. You know, you're stepping out into this field, the energy coursing through your veins. This is the dream start. I mean, not many people get their debut at what is widely regarded as the home of rugby.
I had nothing to lose. In all honesty, I think all the odds were stacked against me. I haven't played 7 or 15s in over 2 years. The most previous time was at the collegiate level. So I'm going to go play 15s at the international level and then against England.
Yeah.
So I
like that. Oh, by the way, you're going to do it in England. Oh, by the way, you're going to do it against England. Oh, by the way, you're going to do it at Twickenham.
I said, you know what? Let's go. If this isn't what I look forward to, or if this isn't what I've been working so hard for the past, X amount of years, then what am I in it for? And this is the pinnacle of it. And so I just embraced the challenge, and I enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, you were smart enough to run off the shoulder of the right guy, because what I always notice about Baska is he always seems to pop up in loose play right at the right place. I mean, if there's a guy that I needed to follow around the pitch, that's the man. I mean, I love his play from the loose. He's brilliant. He's got a second sense. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good guy as well. So So it's good to be, or it's always good to have him part of the squad.
100%. So let's move forward here. We've been talking a little bit about the Eagles now, and that question regards to you playing in Twickenham with the Eagles against England. Let's talk about another team that is a legendary in its own right. Obviously, the Eagles faced a huge task in Washington, D.C. just 2 weeks ago to square off against the mighty All Blacks. In some Kiwi-based groups, folks took offense to Nate Brakeley smiling during the haka. I don't know if you saw that. Run, pass, or kick. Did you see Nate's response to the challenge, the haka, as a form of disrespect, or is it something else?
I don't see it as a sign of disrespect. You're playing in front of thousands of people against the infamous All Blacks, and it's the haka, which is something that you watch and you almost get goosebumps, seeing it, hearing it live. And for him to smile isn't saying, hey, I'm not embracing this and understanding where it's coming from and respect and putting the utmost respect for it. I just think he was so juiced and excited for the game where those are the emotions that just came naturally to him. And you got to think, England went in a V and started walking, towards the haka, and I think maybe it was World Cup or it was a test match, but because they're England, it's okay. So
right.
Oh no, there was still a stink about that.
Yeah, and if you knew Nate Brakeley, he's one of the most respectful and humble guys on the team. Right. But of course, leave it to the people that never have played test rugby or high level rugby to have
the social media warriors, the keyboard warriors out there, right?
And there's too many of them.
Right.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that not only that, but when in this forum and I was following it, they couldn't even identify his name. So here they're complaining about this guy who they don't know. They've never, obviously watched an interview or talked with him or gotten to know him and all. They would, if they did, they would say exactly what you said, is the guy loves rugby and is probably there smiling because he's pinching himself like, holy God, this is everything that I probably worked for in my rugby life coming together in one place. What an amazing challenge and experience it is.
Right.
It would be totally different if they did. I mean, you mentioned England, but I remember Australia. They talked to John Eales one year that they consciously actually didn't even face up against the haka. They continued to kick the ball around and practice passing.
Just ignored it completely. Yeah, didn't even pay attention to it. And now you're talking about the old days, right? I mean, that was still the amateur game, I think. John Eales, number 5. It was about the only 5 that I've ever seen as the place kicker, right? And also an interesting character, a no bullshit type guy. And that was just the sentiment of the team of that age, right? Yeah. But I got to be a little bit controversial here. The New Zealand haka, while an amazing tradition and unique to the sport of rugby in terms of professional sport, perhaps, it is not some sacred, blessing upon it. It's a challenge. I honestly believe that every rugby team should have the right to be able to challenge it in an appropriate way. What we decide is appropriate is a different question, but why must it be that rugby must stop and allow New Zealand to be able to do this and there's no response allowed? That needs to be a debate at some point, because I think that tradition of it is so antiquated that you can't even, as a professional rugby side, advance 2 or 3 steps in whatever formation you want because you're not allowed to respond to the haka is unbelievable, right? But for that response, the most appropriate response that you can give at that time is just a smile, because you know what? This might be one of the best moments as a rugby player to be able to face what for many players might be your rugby heroes, at least on the platform of them being the All Blacks.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And Nate's the most, jubbly and energetic guy. And so
it's kind of a compliment in a way, right? He's not looking as a negative. He's just like, man, I'm standing staring this down and I'm excited, but it's just kind of a surreal moment that a grin comes to your face. All right. So let's take that energy and move into the next question here. And we're on to number 9. So let's go ahead. Run, pass, or kick. Still focusing on the Eagles' performance here. Since July, the Eagles have had some mixed results. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, and of course, that saga, well, I wouldn't say that story is still continuing on its pathway towards the qualifying of Rugby World Cup 2023. With that in mind, what is the key to getting some consistency in the build-up to the next Rugby World Cup, in your opinion?
There's no straight line to it. There's no easy answer, but I'm going to say it just starts with more individual accountability. And I'll leave it at
that. Man, a few words.
Few words. We love it.
But well, absolutely. In any team sport, everybody's got to be held accountable because there's no one person greater than the team. But in the game of rugby, everybody's got to be on the same page and play together and play with the team concept in mind in order for the team to be successful. We know that particularly in the game of rugby.
Right. I mean, that's true. Just because you might have the best players in the world doesn't necessarily mean you have the best team, right?
Right.
And some of those that are like lower ranked on paper as a team perform much better than expected. And we hope that will come to be that continuity and that team strength is continuing to build momentum as the games move forward for the US.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm confident in each player that puts on the uniform and us as an entire squad, and I don't walk away from the loss to Canada and the loss to Uruguay. I don't take it lightly, and I don't think anybody in the organization did. So, of course, there's going to be improvements made, and I think one thing that would help us a lot is just a bit more time together.
Right.
Typical USA test matches. Hey, let's get you together for 5 or 6 days and go play.
Let's get you together for 5 days and play the best rugby team the world has ever seen.
It's that, and I think each player needs to take this season, whoever they're playing for, really, really seriously and work on the individual components to their game. So when it comes time to represent the Eagles, they're a better player come July against Chile than they were. In the last few test matches.
It sounds on what you're saying is that it's all fine and well when you're in the MLR season. You work towards the strategy, you work towards the strengths of what you're being taught and what works for the team. But you still got to have that in the back of your mind that this is one of those journeys, one of those steps in the journey to representing the United States at the highest level. So you still got to have working towards that as the goal. It's not like you just focus on this one and then you just revisit the other one when it's time. You kind of need to understand it's all just one pathway. Is that what you're saying?
In a sense, it's just, be accountable with your habits, your actions, your play, your prep. So we don't have games where we are one team one weekend and we look completely different the next weekend. And I think that was visible. Us up in St. John's versus up or down in Denver playing Canada. Couple players played one game and didn't play the other game, but as a whole and as an organization, we should be a bit more consistent with our game.
100%. I want to, continue down this path, talk a little bit more about the Eagles and some of the individuals on the Eagles, not necessarily names, but the idea, so to speak, with this next question. So, run, pass, or kick, as the Eagles have returned to play in 2021. Obviously, we talked about July as being that first step. It sure seems like head coach Gary Gold has made a serious attempt to get younger talent injected into the team. So again, run, pass, or kick, do you think that an interjection of youth has been a clear priority for Gary, or is that just, by happenstance?
I don't really have, an answer. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Coach Gold, but I think the young players that he did bring in have proven themselves, and it's been a great opportunity for obviously myself and other young individuals on the team, and their performance has been, I think it's been consistent from a lot of the young guys, whether that be just their energy and their enthusiasm. So I don't really know the game plan or tactics from Coach Gold bringing in young players, but I look up to Coach Gold and I back every decision he makes, and if that's the trajectory we're on, then we're going to go with it and give everything we got. But yeah, I really don't know.
I mean, it's really neat to see. They say it takes within a team in order to be super competitive in the Rugby World Cup, you got to have 500 total caps. So it's good to see that foundation is being laid with these young guys like yourselves, guys like Guerra, Ryan James,
Ryan
Kruse, et cetera,
James. There's a lot of young, youthful talent that is proven its worth. Not only, are they in the squad, they're actually, getting game time and they're proving their worth as well, which is fantastic to be able to see. And to further Rob's point, building up to a successful Rugby World Cup campaign, it doesn't start, 2 years out. You're building squads from much earlier. And while, the next Rugby World Cup is 2023, we hope to be able to see you there. You're still going to potentially be around, or at least somebody in your age group definitely going to be around for 2027 and hopefully even 2031 if it ends up on American soil, right? Yep. That's important to be able to recognize. So obviously, coaches like Gary Gold are looking for that next generation, and there's plenty of offerings in the U.S. when it comes to the next generation.
I think that, another component to the whole equation is bringing in youth challenges more senior players and their complacency.
That's true.
Within the squad. So I've seen that in certain positions where a young guy's coming in and he's full of energy and whatnot. Right. And that knowing, you're a senior boy, you shouldn't have that idea in your brain saying, hey, I have X amount of caps, I'm going to be a regular starter. And when you
nobody can be complacent, right? It's good to challenge each other.
But that only breeds competition, and that breeds development, and I think that's healthy for every team, and that should be the norm. Guys pushing the starters to be better, and that will make the younger individuals, better in their regard. So that could be a component, there, but who knows?
Right, so let's move into the next one. Run, pass, or kick, Christian. A fan and occasional guest ranter here on the Rugby Rant, Cole Kinder, commented on the MLR fan zone recently that the MLR is really good for American rugby, but not good so far for our national team. How would you respond to this statement as a true American product and a young Eagle yourself? Again, I remind you, the comment is that the MLR is great for American rugby, but hasn't proven to be as great for the national team.
I can run with it. I haven't been within an MLR organization. I haven't invested enough time and whatnot into the entirety of it. So I don't know if I am the best person to ask this, but to have a comment like that with the league being so adolescent, where it is I don't know if I agree with the statement, but I think it just alludes to the idea is the MLR teams and organizations here to develop national team players? Is it to promote their teams and organization from a monetary point of view? So there's certainly a lot of sides to the equation, and I think as long as we are breeding American talent and there is a priority on American talent and like Eagle, you got to be eligible to play for the USA. There needs to be, I guess, whether it be a quota or a cap on the number of non-Eagle eligible players. That's obviously what other leagues in the world are doing, and so there needs to be a focus on American-based and American-eligible players. So that's the only insight I would have.
Yeah, and I imagine it's going to be a debate that kind of continues on really until, like you said, this rather fledgling league really establishes firm roots for years to come. And I want to go on. We've talked a lot about the Rugby World Cup, and we get to that piece here in just a moment. Christian, I want to remind you here at the end, we're going to allow you a couple minutes to give a shout out, to talk about a charity or an organization that's near to your heart, so kind of have that in the back of your mind. But I want to get to this next question. Recently, the United States bid to host the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2029 and the Men's Rugby World Cup in either 2027 or 2031. So run, pass, or kick, will the United States rugby infrastructure be ready to host the competition in any one of those years?
You're asking the wrong person. But from my perspective, I'd absolutely love a World Cup here on home soil. But from my perspective, it's not about where it's at. It's about where our team is on our trajectory and our development and path towards becoming, competitive in a World Cup. We want to advance out of the pool stage and not just be another team that everybody else looks like as an easy win.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? Is you want to be able to make it out of the pool stages for sure. And people offer a comparison as to Japan. Now, Japan, 10 years prior, what would that actually 12 years? So the 2007 Rugby World Cup, which was South Africa won that one. Just FYI.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll remind you whenever you do.
Believe me, I know.
So with that being said, Japan wasn't making out. They were considered a very similar situation. But with the allure of hosting a Rugby World Cup, they were forced to be able to push themselves out of those comfort zones. They were, as a result, growing. And so they ended up achieving their goal because the country itself was backing them. It had formed a culture and it formed a positive culture in their rugby performance step by step. The U.S. is still going to try and mimic and still replicate some of those same results. So that's why probably if it has to be, and we've already said this, has to be that 2031 because that's going to give them 10 years, right? It would be better to have 10 years to build to that home World Cup than it might be if you only do it in 2027. Not saying that that's impossible, but it seems more likely in 2031. Wouldn't you agree that if we're going to make it out of that pool stage, or at least have the best shot at it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put anything biased for 2023 or 7. You'd like to think in 10 years we're going to go from where we are now to, way up here. I'd love to have the World Cup here sooner than 2031, in all honesty. But with Japan Rugby, the government and the country, that they invested a ton of money into the program, and they really, really invested in their domestic league and their players, knowing that we're going to do everything now to be somewhere else later. It wasn't we need to go from X to Z in the next year. There was a long-term map and a long-term, game plan. And
right.
So, maybe we need to mimic that or.
Right. Well, I mean, even for Japan, sorry to cut you off, for Japan, it was, okay, they performed poorly in 2007. Still, the reputation was poor at that time. No measurable results were being recognized there. Then 2015 came along, and I mean, much to my dismay, they took down South Africa, which, was one of those great matches that needed to happen for rugby to move forward. It's just, unfortunately, South Africa was the victim of that. But nevertheless, it still set a new standard for Japan in the 2015 Rugby World Cup, where they beat them in Brighton. They didn't make it out of the group stage then, though. Only when it came to their home soil did they make it out of that group stage. As you said, it's bit by bit you're going to be able to get there, but you need to be able to set attainable and reasonable goals and measure and evaluate your success between those World Cup cycles, which I believe America has the ability to do, because where they are right now from the 2019 underperforming side at that level, to be frank, in 2019 for the US. We've got 2023 to be able to look forward to, but that'll be the first cycle that we've had an entirely professional team. So it'll be exciting to see what that result is.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into the last and final question. Again, a quick reminder for you, Christian Dyer, is that at the end, it's a bit of a tradition here on the Rugby Rant that we give the microphone and the floor to our guests to share a shout out to anybody special, or maybe you want to draw attention to a special cause. We'll give you that window just before we head out of this episode here of the Run, Pass or Kick interview with Christian Dyer. And I remind all of our viewers, if you would like to get more content, more of us, you can do so by following us online under the handle @RugbyRantPod, where we will have a new Rugby Insider interview each and every Monday at 8 p.m. CST. Make sure you join us on social media to view that live. In addition, don't forget you can follow us on the Rugby Network every Friday with a new Rugby Debate show. So last and final question lined up here for you, Christian. Run, pass, or kick. You successfully run at almost everything, I think. So maybe I'll get a pass on this one. Most likely not. What is one of the biggest hurdles that rugby in the US has to overcome in order to move the game forward? That's a toughie.
I figured you went to an institution like Cal. You should be able to handle a question like this.
There's so many variables. I think I touched on it. It's investing in the youth.
Yeah.
Right.
You look at football, you look at baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever other sport you want to compare it to. The balls are in their hands when they're 6 years old. A lot of rugby players don't have that until they're maybe high school, maybe college. And so that's years and years of experience and development that are lost. And so I'm going to say investing in the youth.
I like it. It's a fair answer and it echoes the same values here on the Rugby Rant. And I know that Rob in particular has been an advocate of that, being a youth rugby coach himself. And of course, his kids now playing at college level, you get to be able to see the progression and different levels of that coaching influence over players. But you're right. It just has to start as early as possible, getting a rugby ball in every kid's hand.
Yeah. And you know what the Eagles are doing and what the MLR is doing is only opening up doors for those kids and inspiring the youth to be a part of, something big. And it's a path towards obviously some elite level athletics. And there, hopefully one day there's a big financial incentive where individuals can make careers out of the sport.
Yeah. It was a funny story real quick here at the end, but a friend of mine from high school is actually out in the San Diego area. And I just happened to see her post that her kids were at a rugby camp. Patrick Madden was there, of course. It was a local rugby camp. And I'm like, I had, no idea that, her kids were involved. But it was great to see at such a young age, kids getting involved in rugby. Mm-hmm. And especially having contact with guys like yourself, guys like Patrick Madden, guys doing it at a high level.
So, yeah, San Diego is a breeding ground for rugby players. And a ton of youth programs and a ton of high school programs. So they're doing it right.
It's great to be able to see, and we hope that same sentiment expands across the nation, and we just get more kids playing rugby. Because as you pointed out, it's just like soccer. It's growth in the U.S. Expanded by just making sure they had as many people playing the sport as possible and as from an early age as possible. So I kind of grew up with them, and you're a product of that very same design. As you were fortunate enough to be able to adopt it earlier than most at a high school level. So even that would be a triumph because we can get more high school programs across the nation to be able to adopt it as a sport. And then, maybe it goes even earlier. But it is certainly a work in progress. And Christian, as we come to the end of our time here on the Run, Pass, or Kick interview, as I mentioned before, it's part of our tradition here on the show to be able to throw the microphone back to you to send a shout out to anybody important or perhaps draw attention to a cause that you find important. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, first and foremost, just thank you guys for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Good to meet you, Rob. Good to meet you, Ty. Scott in the background. Thanks for all your efforts. You kept saying I started in high school, which that's not really true. I began rugby in 6th grade. In an organization called Lamb Park Motley. And so if I was to shout anybody out, I'm going to shout out the Motley because they were very, very pivotal in the early years of my rugby career. And they created an environment that I absolutely thrived in and loved. And they opened, many doors for me. So that's who I'm shouting out.
I love that. First of all, thanks for correcting me because if it is even earlier, that's even better, right? That's great. We need more programs like that across the nation. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you for sharing that last part there. You've been an amazing guest. You're a great ambassador for the sport. Where you are right now is amazing to be able to see how far you've come in such a relatively short time. Although there's a lot of hard work that's backed, a lot of trials and tribulations, but there's a wonderful road that's ahead of you. as one of the great young talents of America. And we hope to be able to see you continue plying your trade here domestically, and if not, professionally elsewhere in the world at higher and greater honors. And good will come.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
No worries. It's our pleasure. It's great to have you on, Christian. We thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us this evening. It's been a special night for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Well, there you have it, Rugby Rant fans. Another great run, pass, or kick interview in the books. On behalf of the team, let me remind you that you have been watching this episode here with the Rugby Rant team. My name is Ty Braga, your host for today's activities, alongside Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt. On behalf of Scott the Big Guy Ferrari, and of course, our man of the hour, Christian Dyer, we thank you for watching, and we will see you at the next.